Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about our upcoming PAX coverage and what you can expect from it. It's been several years since I've had the opportunity to go to a PAX event, and I kind of miss it, honestly. With the diagnosis and all the treatment and all that sort of thing, it made sense to stay away from such events for a while, but now I'm pretty much feeling healthy enough to do it. I'm going to be able to go and work the event once again, which means I'm going to be bringing you coverage of upcoming titles. The question is, which ones, and how is coverage going to work this time around? Well, that is exactly what I'm here to tell you. So I've booked up 3 days worth of appointments for games that I handpicked as being interesting. Got a bunch of different emails, hundreds in fact, from developers, and of course there are many games on display at the show. I wanted to pick ones that you maybe hadn't seen before, ones that looked very interesting, unique, and actually stood out in their own right. I didn't want to cover anything generic. I wanted to cover things that were innovative in some way. There are not a huge number of AAA PC titles that are going to be at PAX East. I don't know if you've noticed that, but if you looked at the schedule, there's a lot of console stuff and not so much on the AAA PC side of things. Games that you would expect to be there, like, say, Deus Ex Mankind Divided, that ain't there. Why? Couldn't say. Square Enix is demonstrating their console and their mobile lineups only, which obviously I have no interest in whatsoever, being as this is a PC channel. Honestly, though, that's fine by me. I personally prefer to check out interesting indies at PAX because that's probably the best place to do it, and they usually have a very large selection of really interesting stuff. So, coverage-wise, we're going to be doing it the style of the last PAX, not the PAX before that. If you don't remember that, I don't blame you, because that was years ago. So we switched from live on-the-floor recording to post-produced commentary. There are a number of reasons for that. The first being sound quality on a very loud floor is going to be dodgy regardless of the kind of gear that you use. We do have some really good gear for that particular purpose, but regardless of that fact, it's still noisy. There's still an awful lot of stuff in the background. It makes it hard to listen to. Secondly, people did not want to hear the developers talk. Now, as sad as that is, you can kind of understand it because they simply do not want to be marketed to. And not every developer is particularly eloquent. Some, of course, English is not their first language. Others, they're just shy, and it makes sense. They're not on YouTube for a living, so they're not necessarily going to adapt that well to YouTube style of live coverage. So what we're doing is we're recording the footage, and I'm then going to be commentating it in post, so you get much cleaner audio, and you also get hopefully more cogent thoughts, less mistakes, and basically my assessment of what I played based on the footage that you see on the screen. We had more success views-wise with that kind of coverage than we did with the live stuff. Now, there are a couple of games on the list that are going to be using B-reel footage as opposed to live feed. I should be able to capture from most of the games, but not all of them. Some are not giving permission for that to anybody. That's unfortunately a common practice at shows, usually with very early versions that they don't want live capture of. That has not stopped videos that we've produced in the past at shows being very popular. For instance, the video that we did of Batman Arkham Origins at PAX a few years ago was one of our more popular videos, and it used B-reel footage. Of course, we'll disclaim whenever we're using B-reel and not live capture, so you will know. And of course, I'll be talking about the gameplay that I experienced as opposed to the B-reel itself. So, it's not ideal, but unfortunately it's what outlets are stuck with, ourselves included, in some situations. For the most part, the games we've booked do not have that restriction, but a couple of them do. Alright, without further ado, I'm going to go through the list. Bear in mind, there may be problems with some of these games, so that means that perhaps one that comes up on this list will not show up because either the footage ends up being awful or something goes wrong with the appointment. You never know. It's a live show environment. Anything could possibly go wrong. And of course, if we can slip in a few extra games, we will do that. I'm going to give you a short synopsis of each game and tell you exactly why you should care about it. We didn't pick these games at random, we picked ones that looked like they'd be really interesting to our audience, so hopefully we're right on that one. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to check out on the Friday is Supergiant's brand new title. So they're the guys behind, of course, Bastion and Transistor. Their new game is called Pyar. This is going to be the first time that it's been shown. We get to play it, we get to capture it. This is the same thing that we did a few years ago with Transistor, and that did incredibly well for us. So hopefully this will be the same situation. Considering that both of those games have been phenomenal, I have high expectations for Pyar as well, and it's going to be a party-based RPG by the looks of it. It's going to be a little bit different to Bastion and to Transistor, but I don't think I need to explain any more as to why we're covering that. Supergiant Games have done very well on this channel, and of course, they have been some of my favorite games of the past few years. Bastion was my top game of 2011, Transistor was in the top 5 for 2014. That's an easy explanation, there you go. The next game that we're going to be checking out is Below. Now, this game has been on my radar for a few years, and I have a feeling it's also quite familiar to some of you, but it may have been pushed out of your mind simply because it's been delayed for a very, very long time. Below, initially by Capybara Games, was announced back in 2013. It's been a while. We expected it to come out a lot earlier. Development has been slower than anticipated, but Below is a Souls-style roguelite game with supposed rigorous but fair combat, and this really interesting art style that uses a tilt-shift photography effect to give this real sense of scale. Capybara have a pretty great pedigree, which includes Super Time Force, Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery, and Might and Magic Clash of Heroes. We'll just ignore the fact they made a game called Sexy Pillow Fight in 2007. But this game looks like it's going to be worthy of a lot of people's time. It's going to be fairly hardcore, certainly aimed at the core audience, and as a result, we're going to be taking a good look at it. I'm just curious as to whether or not it's actually going to come out this year. It's supposed to be. It's scheduled to be, so I anticipate an interesting and hopefully enjoyable experience there. The next game on the list is Lawbreakers. So that is the upcoming first-person shooter by Boss Key, and that's Cliffy B's new development house. Lawbreakers is a new first-person shooter IP. It's looking like one of the most interesting arena shooters to come out in 2016, not that it's got much competition in that regard. It's very focused on verticality as well as three-dimensional movement, so there's going to be gravity manipulation and physics manipulation mechanics, which looks very interesting to me, certainly. I do like my multiplayer shooters, no doubt. And it's become more interesting since they announced that it will no longer be a free-to-play game, and it will be coming exclusively to PC. This, in my eyes, is a good thing, simply because previously it was a free-to-play game that was multi-platform, and as we're well aware, free-to-play shooters can have a number of different problems, particularly with business models, especially when they're published by Nexon, which this one is. So the hope is that as a result of the business model change, this will be a much more solid and well-rounded and fair product. So I'm definitely all over that one, and we're going to be checking that one out on the Friday. The next game on the list is Mirage Arcane Warfare, which is by the developers of Chivalry, Medieval Warfare, and of course Chivalry Deadliest Warrior. The Torn Banner folks are taking a shot at fantasy, and this is going to be mage-based combat. I'm rather interested in seeing how that's going to turn out. It is in a very early state. They did say they can only give me B-reel for that because of just how early it is. The game itself, however, does look interesting. As you're probably aware, myself and quite a few other YouTubers really enjoy Chivalry Medieval Warfare, so hopefully Mirage will also be a good game. So I'm going to get a chance to check that one out on the Friday at the show as well. Should be obvious as to why I care about that one, considering our previous history with the previous game in the series. Those are the games that I'm scheduled to look at on the Friday. Again, we might slip in a couple of extras. It just depends how it goes, but I'm not going to promise anything more than that. Now, Saturday's looking pretty open outside of the Co-optional podcast panel, which is going to be happening at 1 PM in the Dragonfly Theatre. That's going to be streamed live on Twitch. Some people thought that we might be streaming exclusively on Go90. That is not at all true. It's worth pointing out that the Co-optional podcast is no longer a part of Polaris's programming, so we're going to be streaming that on the official PAX stream, which means, of course, it's going to be free to watch for everybody. If you're going to show up, bear in mind it's a 700-person theater. We have filled up larger rooms than that before. We don't know if we'll do that this time, but one way or the other, you might not want to turn up late because you may be turned away if we do fill out the house. It should be a lot of fun. Myself, Dodger, and Jesse will be there, and we may very well have a couple of special guests. We'll hopefully also be debuting a brand new co-optional animated on the show itself, so do tune in for that. If you do miss it, I believe it will be available on Twitch VODs for free, and I'll also, of course, try and get the VOD for our channel as well. We'll be doing a lot of things like autograph signings and photograph sessions on the Saturday, so if I do have time to look at any games, I certainly will. I believe the only game that I do have on my schedule for that is a game called Hob, which is by the Torchlight 2 developers, Runic. This is a gorgeous little action-adventure game, something a little bit out of the ordinary for Runic, who are of course known for the Torchlight series, so action RPGs. But what attracted me to this one, outside of the fact that I love Torchlight, is the particular unique aesthetic that this game has. Very colorful and overgrown aesthetics, probably the best way to describe it. Very mysterious. So I'm looking forward to trying out Hob, and hopefully you guys will enjoy watching some footage of that. Now, moving on to Sunday, which is the final day of the show, I have scheduled first Metronomicon. This one caught my eye simply because the game is a mixture of Dance Dance Revolution and Final Fantasy, so they claim. It looks absolutely ridiculous and has a very colorful and weird aesthetic, and we have done rhythm-based games before. I mean, Crypt of the Necrodancer did very well on the channel, so I have a feeling that games like that, and of course Sequence or Before the Echo, now if I recall correctly it's called, do pretty well. This game looks like it has a really silly sense of humor, so it's by Casino Games, and I'm definitely going to be checking that out, no doubt about it. It just looks insane, and that's a good enough reason to cover it as far as I'm concerned. The next game on the list for Sunday is going to be about 7 different Adult Swim titles. So we have done a lot of coverage of Adult Swim published games on PC, and that's mostly because almost all of them are good one way or the other. They have a surprisingly stellar track record on the PC platform, which is surprising. You wouldn't really expect that, but they have, and we've covered quite a few of them in the past. So they're demonstrating a whole bunch of them at PAX East. I believe they're showing, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them, which include Death's Gambit, Desync, Ghost Song, Headland, A Katana Zero, Rain World, Rise and Shine, and Wasted, a post-apocalyptic pub crawler. So I'm going to give them 2 hours of my time and try and capture as much of this stuff as possible because it looks ridiculous. They're also holding a duck game tournament apparently at 3 to 5 p.m. on April the 23rd. I may attempt to slide my way into that if I have the time, but I have a feeling we're going to be signing autographs one way or the other. That sounds like a good time. Previous games that we've covered from Adult Swim include Super Puzzle Platformer Deluxe, Super House of Dead Ninjas, and of course the one and only duck game. That, if anything, is a reason alone to check out our coverage of the Adult Swim stuff. And last but by no means least, on the Sunday, we have Behemoth's new game, Pit People, which is, by the looks of it, a tactics game, which is a little bit unusual from the guys that brought you Castle Crashers, as well as, of course, Battle Block Theater. This is definitely a bit out of the ordinary for the folks over at Behemoth, which is why I'm interested in it. It is described as a fast-paced, co-op, turn-based adventure. I really want to play it. The aesthetic is awesome, as all Behemoth games are, and their setup is, as usual, going to be crazy with arcade cabinets and all sorts of other nonsense. I don't see any reason at all not to look at what Behemoth's got, so that will most likely be capping off our show. And that's the list of games we currently have scheduled. There could be others, but those are the ones that I have on my appointment calendar. Those are the ones that hopefully we will have the chance to bring you footage of. They're all weird and innovative and cool in their own right, so hopefully that'll be a good reason for you to watch those videos. I'll be bringing them out over the course of probably about a week, since it's going to take me a while to get the footage together, commentate it, and do all of that sort of stuff. So do not expect them immediately. It will take a little bit of time to get them together, but that'll be about a week's worth of content on new and interesting upcoming titles from PAX. Alright folks, thank you very much for watching. If you are going to be checking out the co-optional panel, do remember it's going to be on Saturday, live in the Dragonfly Theatre at 1 p.m. Eastern. That's also going to be broadcasting on Twitch TV on the PAX Dragonfly Theatre channel. I'll be hosting it on twitch.tv/TotalBiscuit, so if you happen to miss it, don't worry. We'll have it there as well if you can't find the channel, and we'll make sure that the VOD is also available for those that can't catch it live. There will be an autograph and signing session after the show, so if you happen to be coming to the show, please do not ask for signatures during the event. We have had that happen before, which is a little awkward, so let's not do that. Let's do it after the show when we're not doing the broadcast. And I hope it'll be a good time for everybody. I'm looking forward to going to PAX again. I haven't been for several years, so this is definitely a return to the circuit for us. And I appreciate your patience over the next few days while we get some stuff together. My name has been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.